episode of Surviving the Survivor, we bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, BestGuests Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. Tonight is no exception, and we are coming to you live from Orlando, just 2 blocks away from the Orange County Courthouse. That is the site of the Sarah Boone so-called suitcase murder trial. And breaking news at this hour, the jury has been seated and sworn in. There are 6 actual jury members and 8 alternates. So it's a 6-jury panel for second-degree manslaughter. We're going to discuss that and a whole lot more, and I'll give you the breakdown in just a moment. Best guests here, once again, the professor, Joe Patuto. She is the Richard H. Larson Professor of Constitutional Law, Emerita at the University of Nebraska College of Law. She may quiz Ryan. It is unclear if that will happen. Professor Patuto has also taught at the law colleges of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, no shabby school, Oregon, Arizona, Rutgers, a stone's throw from my house, Seton Hall, and Cardozo, all fine law schools. Then we've got Ryan. He holds a BA degree from the University of Central Florida. After UCF, he attended Nova Southeastern University. I believe, were you, Ryan, I always have your bio here screwed up, but were you a public defender and now are you doing criminal defense or what kind of law?
Nope, on the other side. I was a homicide prosecutor in Orange County for 15 years and have been representing crime victims the last 5 years in private practice.
And I'll get back to that in a moment. Roger Rhodes, can you hear and see me?
Yes, I can. Glad to be part of the plan.
Well, look at this. Dr. Roger Rhodes, he is a private practice therapist. In talking Sarah Boone, we need a shrink with us. He works out of Greenville, South Carolina, originally in Okie from Oklahoma. And he specializes in dysfunctional relationships, which could probably help just about everyone, but certainly Sarah Boone. He's also worked with inmates inside of prison systems. So another bonus. We haven't had Raj on in a super long time. I don't know why, but happy to have him back and here.
Happy to be back.
Raj, let me start with you, actually, even though there's so much legal stuff to discuss. This woman, Sarah Boone, she's accused of zipping her boyfriend, who was alive at the time, into a suitcase. And then watches him for a period of time, videotapes it, and is mocking him as he is begging for his life. We have found out since she also whacked him with a baseball bat while he was in there, tossed him down a flight of stairs while cursing. What kind of human being does this to another human being, Roger Rhodes?
Well, certainly you see an incredible culture of domestic violence here. I mean, that is the bottom line. She certainly is sociopathic. She doesn't have any feelings. And what we're seeing is dysfunction acted out as if it's normal. That's what we're saying. That's what's amazing. Is when people are really sick, that's their normal. And boy, this crowd was really sick.
So, Ron Vesio, since you are local to Orlando, number one, do you know Will J, since you were a homicide prosecutor?
I do. Will and I worked together in the unit for a number of years. We tried cases together, and he has tried cases that I represent victims and victims' families in now.
Interesting. He's interesting to watch. He's a unique personality. I'll just leave it at that. And the defense is a whole other set of unique personalities. But Ryan, couple questions. Number one, let me just say it again. A jury was sworn in today, very late in the day, read all jury instructions, opening statement set for 9 a.m. tomorrow. We will be streaming that live on this channel. I'm hoping maybe Joe Patuto, I know she's not a morning person, but she might be able to hop on and give some analysis. I'll be live chatting the entire time, and I'm getting a lot of interesting looks at Sarah Boone. So it is a 6-jury panel. The numbers, which are a little meaningless, and it was very confusing the way they were read. Their juror numbers 5, 9, 13, 15, 16, 21. It's like lotto here. The alternates are 23, 27, 28, 32, 35, 37, 38, 43. They were holding placards. These are their placard numbers, not their juror numbers. So it gets super confusing. I can tell you there's 8 women, 6 men. The 8 women, and I can never be certain, but they appear to be Caucasian women, all 8 of them. They look roughly 30 to 55 years old. And then you've got 6 men who appear to be 2 African Americans, 3 Caucasians, and the men look a touch older, ranging in age from 30 to 60 years old. Number one, Ryan, are you surprised? The title of our thumbnail today is kind of facetious. It's something along the lines of, will this trial ever begin? It's going to begin in earnest tomorrow morning. Does it typically take this long to seat 6 jurors? It's been all week. And just what do you make of the fact that we've got 6 and 8 alternates?
So it doesn't normally take this long. I think had the attorneys, frankly, on both sides been a little more prepared to try this case so we weren't in these motion hearings, this would have gone a lot quicker. Normally with a 6-person jury in a homicide case, it might take anywhere from half to 1 day to pick. At this point, they're sworn. That means that jeopardy has attached. So everything's going to take off tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Joe, can I ask Brian something?
100%. By the way, if everything goes out, which there's a possibility, because I'm in a rinky-dink hotel, you're the host of the show. But continue on.
Okay, love being a host. Like being in charge. I have that in common with the defendant here. Joel just said 6 and 8 alternates, and he knew who they were. You practice in Florida. Is that unusual for the alternates to know they're the alternates?
So the judge will not let them know that they are alternates because the jurors are outside of the courtroom when the picking actually goes on, the selecting of 7 versus 14 versus, et cetera. So,
but if they're watching this show, of course, they're not supposed to. Okay.
If they're watching this show, their jury service is going to come to an end. So they will all be lined up in the jury box that can hold 14 there in courtroom 12A, and they will not know that they are alternates until, of course, the jury goes out.
Yeah. So with that said, Joe Patuto, one of the fascinating things that we can just dive into right away. I was going to save it for a little bit. I took notes on this. So they did the voir dire, and then obviously you guys all know this. Once they kind of do a broad brushstroke of that, they bring them in individually. And one prospective female juror who is now on the panel, it's unclear to me whether she's an alternate or a fixed member of the 6 panel jury. She advised the court, Joe, that she is soon going to be a witness in a criminal case involving her ex-husband. He is charged with domestic violence against her and told the court that she can be impartial. Is this interesting to you or surprising? I mean, this has got to be a win for the defense here, but I'm shocked that the state did not use a peremptory strike, and I'll get Ryan's take on this too, but what do you say?
Do you know if the state had already used all its peremptories by the point at which she shared that information?
I don't think so, but I just know if it was me, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm far from it, I would have saved a strike for her if I was the state. But they didn't do that, which surprised me. But she seems, look, it's hard to read a person. She just appears very genuine. I don't know.
It does surprise me. And I think in general, at least my take on this, I didn't do a lot of trials, but my take on it was anybody about which you had a question mark, if you could strike, you would. But, you know, I guess thinking about this a little, it's not impossible that the state decided that someone who has a genuine claim like that would be very, very alert to a defense that doesn't appear to fit the model and might even be a little unhappy at the idea that somebody who doesn't fit is trying to, you know, squeeze into a box into which he doesn't belong. So that, I mean, that would be my guess as to why they might leave her on.
That's a really interesting take. Ryan, do you concur with the professor? Oh, I think you're muted. Ryan. And also, before you get to do you concur, just tell us all, because we're a little unfamiliar, what determines 6 versus 12 jurors? I know here it's because it's second-degree manslaughter, but go ahead.
Correct. So the only criminal case that has 12 jurors in Florida is first-degree murder, where, of course, the only 2 sentences are the death penalty or life in prison without parole. To the professor's point, I think she is right that it's a real calculated risk to put somebody that close to the defense theory on. Now, she could be a very valuable asset in the deliberations room, especially if this goes how we think it is, with Sarah Boone's narrative testimony and inconsistencies and those pieces. But sometimes, Joel, there's a couple other things that come into play. The first is, because this is a female potential juror, the state, to strike her, would have to have a gender neutral reason to do so. Jury selection's hard because you're meeting these people for the first time, as you saw, and unfortunately you can't ask every prospective juror every question you want until you can get a race or gender neutral reason to strike them. So sometimes you get caught in a position of, I only asked this witness 1 question or 2 questions, and therefore I may not have a basis to strike her. Sometimes it comes into a situation where, although this might not be the most favorable juror, there are other ones that are bigger red flags. So, you know, I think the last part about it is those who are good at picking juries are it's like a social experiment where you don't want 6 strong people. You want a couple of quieter people, a couple people that are followers, so that you can, you know, play personalities against each other and you don't create a war during deliberations. So it's a real art to picking a jury.
Yeah, and I can tell you this, you know, this is all just my observation. They seem very serious about the job that at hand right now. They seem sincere, and it seems like what Ryan just said, 1 or 2 might emerge as sort of the leaders of the proverbial pack. So it's interesting dynamics, to say the least. Dr. Raj, there's a lot of things I need to talk to you about. By the way, people are always interested. So if you missed the video, Sarah Boone today wearing the same gray kind of muted suit as yesterday with a different blouse. It was yellow instead of white, and I was correct. They are called Mary Janes. They're little flats with a little ribbon on. She was wearing those, and her legs are so white from not seeing the sun for 4 years that I almost had to look away because it was hurting my eyes. So there she is. But Raj, this is a woman who I'm observing in court, and she cannot sit still. She's either taking notes or talking the ear off one of her attorneys, or just kind of moving around in her chair. There was a moment today where I noticed for like a minute she was just quiet, and then right away she was almost like she realized she was too still and started moving. What if anything does that tell you about a person?
Well, what it says right off the bat is an overactive mind. Okay, she's got so many thoughts running through her head, and she's trying to control what is basically uncontrollable. And so this is her, the talking, the writing, that's all a coping skill she's come up with to help her appear somewhat normal.
From
But it's a
Afton's
response to being
yeah.
overstimulated.
And I'm going to come back to you with a bunch of other things regarding her. There's a thing called the snack motion now. It is now and forever will be known as the snack motion, which I'm going to ask you about, Raj. But Afton Fared here, when or where, Ryan, back to you on this, did they decide, and this is a very important and interesting point here, decide that Sarah Boone has to testify by narrative, and who decided that? Can you first explain what narrative testimony is? That's what we're expecting to see from Sarah Boone, and who does make this decision.
So it's very rare that this happens in court. Normally, questioning is like you're doing now. It's question and answer. It's a conversation. And, a lawyer has an ethical duty to not allow their client to perjure themselves within any sworn proceedings. Perjury is a crime in all 50 states. It's a felony here in the state of Florida. So when the lawyer is faced with a dilemma like here, where Sarah Boone has given so many inconsistent statements, has changed her statements, is just making things up on the fly that we know in court, nonetheless, what she said to her attorneys in conference, the lawyer is put in a position where they can't ask her questions because they know they're going to elicit perjurous testimony. So in that regard, Sarah Booth will be taken to the witness stand and she'll just talk. Think about it as an oration or a speech, so to speak. And I guess you and I can guess how long it'll go on for. But
well, let me ask you this. That was my next question, Ryan. Is there a limit on this soliloquy here?
There is. Although she's not being asked questions, the rules of evidence still apply to her. So she has to, the state will object a number of times to things being not relevant, to hearsay, to lacks of foundation if she's trying to discuss what she's seen or other people have heard. It's going to be a train wreck.
How long?
Never.
I would add, if anybody wants to see this, the trial that just ended with Robert Tellis killing the reporter, he testified by narrative. So anybody sees what, I guess I would call it a circus it can be. All you need to do is go look at part of that video and you'll get a picture of what this will look like. Excuse me for interrupting.
Ryan, do you have a guess? No, not at all. Ryan, do you have a guess? I mean, I know it's only a guess, roughly how long she'll be on the stand for and how soon into the trial?
So she will not take the stand until the state's rested their case. So it'll be at the very end. I know the defense has listed several witnesses that they may call. From a strategic standpoint, it's probably best to call her first and get her out of the way and then try to put duct tape on all of the damage that she will do. I anticipate that her testimony will probably be a half to 3/4 of a day. And that's not because she's going to talk for 4 hours, but the state will have probably 75, 100 objections. Because one of the things that attorneys, because they're trained in evidence, they know which questions that they can ask and which questions not to ask. Although she thinks she's a lawyer, she's not had that training and experience. So it's going to be a very long day in that courtroom.
I mean, I'm curious. I have a lot of questions on this, I guess. How do you prepare? I mean, Sarah Boone's a bit unhinged. I can ask Roger if it sounds like she has ADHD. To me, she does. By the way, my dad, who's a psychiatrist now, passed away. May he rest in peace. He did not believe in labels, like just giving everyone everyone's an individual with their own choice. However, broadly speaking, I would definitely say she's got a bit of ADHD. How does her defense team advise her prior to her taking the stand? What do you have to tell them?
Don't lie. Tell the truth. You're sworn in as any other witness. Do not commit perjury. But they're going to.
How does she know where to start and where to end?
Well, they will talk her through and they will have a general strategy discussion about what to talk about and in what order. She probably won't listen, but her attorneys will do everything they can to help her present her story in the way that she wants. But in 7,000 criminal cases I prosecuted, I dealt with this once in almost 15 and a half years. It just doesn't happen. So it's one of those things to where the professor teaches in her ethics class, but lawyers normally don't deal with this in an entire career. So really, for the defense or the state, there's really not a whole lot of preparation. It's just kind of hold on to your armrests for the ride.
It's interesting that literally last week it was Robert Tellis doing this. When you hear about how rare it is, I'm not going to pull up the comment, but there's a comment for Raj from Annie K that I'd like Raj to address. Then I'm coming to Bernie Heaven here, but Raj, Annie K wants to know if you can speak to the idea that female jurors are tougher on their own gender. Is this true that women will be harder on women than on men?
Well, what you see is that women have a tendency to hold people's feet to the fire. They have a good BS meter, and that you see very much more so in women than in men. Men have more of an element of forgiveness or looseness on the edges, and women are much more, straight line, yes, no, black, white type thinking. And so that you could see where that would come very much in focus in this situation, because Sarah is obviously not well. She's obviously on the spectrum, and that is kind of I think that's a new element for lawyers to have to struggle with, is how am I going to deal with someone who does not think or process like normal human beings.
Yeah. Someone's asking, who is it? It is Leo Wren, I believe it is. Why are you looking at Sarah's legs, Joel? If someone put a flashlight in your face, would you look at it? That's what it was like. I mean, it was shocking. Her face, by the way. And again, I don't want this to come across like I'm like being derogatory, but her face is like 15 shades darker. I guess she has some kind of foundation on than her legs, but it's amazing. It just caught me by surprise. To the professor here. So earlier today, Professor Joe Patuto, I tweeted out that I had a weird visceral and gut feeling that this trial ends in disastrous fashion. And a bunch of people were asking me what I meant by that. And I guess the true answer is I don't really know. However, what I do know is it felt at a lot of times during this trial so far, this first week, that the defense is just literally trying to catch up and catch their breath. So this comment here struck me. Joe, on the defense being unprepared, or are they using stalling tactics? Whichever they are, they're dire in my opinion. Think they thought SB would plead out. There is a feeling, kind of, at least for me, in that courtroom. And don't get me wrong, I think these are good attorneys. As a matter of fact, Tony Henderson, who was doing the voir dire, I tweeted out, he's incredibly charismatic. He's very engaging, but they seem like a few steps behind. There's a lot of tension I can feel between Will J., the prosecutor, and James Owens, the defense attorney. Not that they don't like each other, but like they're both annoyed and aggravated. And I don't know. There's a lot of discovery that each side claims that they haven't had a chance to look at, and it doesn't feel good. What are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I felt that way when I watched the motions yesterday with the COE. In part, the defense team came on so late that it's not, I think, surprising that they don't have their act fully together. That said, some of what happened in the hearing yesterday, I really thought was disorganized, and you couldn't really explain it or I couldn't, by the fact that they were late arrivers. I mean, providing some of the discovery to the prosecution and not also providing it to the court. I mean, it seems to me that would be kind of second nature. You give it to one, you give it to the other. And that's happened more than once. It happened a few weeks ago. It happened again yesterday. I also felt that at times they weren't tracking either what the prosecution's argument was or what the judge was asking. Now, in one of those, and that was what is the overt act, I ended up deciding it was really because they didn't want to have to disclose what they thought it was, and therefore some of the dancing around was simply an effort not to answer. But that wasn't the only time they did it. And there were some comments yesterday when we were watching that hearing by some of the people in the chat saying, I understand what the judge is asking, why don't they? And it seemed to me that happened again. Now I'm losing track of the days and the times when they came back in and they asked the judge, so now tell us, what can we do in opening? I thought that was clear from the day before. They asked him a couple of times. He answered it a couple of times.
Yeah,
so I do think some of that is distraction, disorganization. And from the state side, I am very sympathetic to the state because you're getting this discovery coming in pieces. They're put in the position at times, and the judge a couple of times asked them things where they're not able to respond because the defense didn't provide the information in the way it needed to be provided. And it's not their responsibility to do the defense's job. So it's very frustrating. And I would be extraordinarily frustrated if things kept coming. I didn't have everything the defense thought I did. So I don't know whether the defense is going to get it straightened out by the time the trial starts, but I have my doubts, I guess. Now, some of it,
Ryan, I'm sorry, Joe. I think Ryan, I didn't mean to cut you off. I saw Ryan raise his hand. Ryan, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah. So, so to your point, Joe, a prosecutor's job in part is to ensure the integrity of the prosecution,
of course,
especially in a case like this where the state's got really good facts. So the fact that the state is having to do a portion of the defense's job and bend over backwards, and you could tell through the arguments that Will J wanted to argue other things. And, he said a few times, I think even this morning, that the state's going to concede on this or concede on that. They're trying to protect against ineffective assistance of counsel here, which makes trying the case so difficult.
Right.
Because, of a number of reasons. And the only other thing that I've seen is there's a difference between being masters of your case and your facts and at least being organized and prepared. So sloppily filing motions, not being able to argue motions. You saw for the first time today, the judge is finally getting annoyed.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, you keep hearing him ask James Owens. James will just get up there and kind of say something, almost for the sake of saying it. And the judge is getting annoyed and he's asking, what is the relevance to this is out of the purview of what we're discussing. But go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, and you saw this yesterday with Henderson. When Henderson went back and started talking about, well, can I say this and I say that? And I thought I had to file this motion because of this and that. Defense attorneys always have to protect the record and make the record, especially on their objections. But sometimes it becomes overkill. And what you're going to see in this case is the defense today was wearing the judge thin. And when this thing gets into the middle of next week and there are objections and proffers outside the presence of the jury, the judge is finally going to get annoyed. And it does not help your client, even if
what happens when the judge really gets annoyed, Ryan?
Well, hopefully he's got a pin in his sock so he doesn't say something that is inappropriate. But look, it's a murder case, and murder cases are tried differently. They shouldn't be. A trial should be the same DUI except for capital murder, but the reality of it is murder cases are different. They're tried different. Defendants get more of a discretion in a murder case. However, when that runs out and you've pissed your judge off, then it just makes your job so much harder trying the case.
Well, and I thought yesterday, I thought yesterday even the questions as to on the motion as to foundation, we'll be able to go over it again. The prosecutor said, course foundation is open on any piece of evidence at trial. He kept saying it. The judge kept saying it, and Henderson kept making the same argument about it. I mean, I would need 2 pins to try to not say anything. On the other hand, this judge has dealt with Sarah Boone for quite a while. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I really think he's kind of inured to part of this.
Yeah, he seems very patient, very reasonable, and very experienced. Rosemary Romero, Ryan, real quick on this, and I'm going to get back to Raj. Will the defense, you see the Canadian spelling there, try to dismiss the case before the trial starts? Is there any chance that we go in there tomorrow and for whatever reason, James Owens either, I don't know, says he can't move forward, the case is then continued? Is there a chance of this?
Well, I mean, chance is a wide word. There's a chance that we're related, even though we've never met. So,
I'd be happy to. You've got a mellifluous voice. I would love it.
I appreciate it. No, this is going to opening statements tomorrow morning. I mean, I will tell you, I was trying a serial rapist once, and the case was going along, and we come back for day 3, and he tried to commit suicide that night at the jail. So the trial had to stop. Or we had an instance, I had a colleague once who was trying a defendant in a serious case, and the guy ran away and didn't come back after lunch. So absent something just completely off your bingo card, it's going to be opening statements tomorrow.
All right. And we're going to be there. We're going to be streaming it here live. I think hopefully Joe Patuto can come and do the live commentary with the COE. And I will be in the courtroom live chatting. Dr. Raj, man. Dr. Raj, you're not your usual like super high energy. You got to give us at least one owie.
Well, number one, we got smart people here, and one of the things I'm trying to do is learn and listen, okay? Because one of the things that's going on here psychologically is people trying to discern normal, okay? That's part of the game, okay? How she and the defense are working is they're creating a different normal. And the normal for her would be chaos and confusion. Okay? When things are chaotic and things are confusing, to normal people, they're chaotic and confusing. But to her, it's normal. And so the defense is playing to her issues, her lack of normalcy, and trying to state what is normal. So that's part of the dance that's going on. And I'm glad to hear that the judge is very well focused, because he's going to need to be, because that is what the defense is focused on. It's not about doing things normally, acting reasonably, presenting things the way they've been taught. No, they're trying to put out things to create a mental atmosphere of chaos and confusion.
Raj, let me digress for a second. This is self-serving, and I'll get hate mail for this. But okay, so like I'm addicted to Reese's peanut butter cups. I've admitted this openly. I'm like an alcoholic. I know that's much more serious, but I'm a sugar addict. Yeah, it's a real problem. So listen, my mom she's used this tactic since I was probably 5 years old. She'll say, hey, I just read an article in Time magazine. This was back in the 70s. Reese's peanut butter cups, cause this, this, and this. So she will try to get me off of the Reese's peanut butter cups. And now I just totally lost my train of thought with where I was going with that, but it was good. It was good. It was good. Oh, I know what it was. Yeah. So she tells me the other week. Okay. She tells me the other week that she just read an article that stress can be addictive. And I feel like I have trouble living my life without stress. Is there, and I feel like maybe Sarah Boone is in a similar boat. Is there such a thing as an addiction to stress, Raj?
It's not necessarily an addiction. What would be a better word, Joe, would be normalizing. See, it's a coping skill. Okay. People get into situations, just like attorneys and professors and therapists, we've got a zone in which we seek as normal, and that feels good to us. And that's, people who say the phrase being in the zone. That's the zone. Okay. And so what people do is they find ways, locations, outfits, makeup, what they wear, what they say, who they hang around with, to help them stay in the zone. And if I am stressed out or I'm overwhelmed and I eat a Reese cup, and that sets me into what I believe to be more of a normal zone, then I'm going to be drawn to use that. It's kind of like homemade medicine,
Hey,
it
Reese's
really
peanut butter
doesn't
cups.
do it.
Yeah, they need to
I'm sorry,
sponsor our
but
show.
what it
No,
does-
they need. Yeah, go ahead, Raj. You're in a little delay. Go ahead.
It's a psychological feed to you. You convince yourself that helps, that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And
One
so
more Raj
one of
question,
the
and then
things-
back to the law here. Earl's Pool Hall.
Yeah.
A lot of adults are now stating that they're on the spectrum. You just said that about Sarah Boone. What do you think is the cause of
Yeah.
this, Raj?
What they're trying to do is explain to the general public what's going on. Because see, the public watches people and goes, something's not right here. Something is a little off. See, when they came up with spectrum, it's to help people understand that things are by degree. It's like a lot of people like light switches, off, on, right, wrong, good, bad, black, white. See, but life is not like that. It's more like a dimmer switch. And the spectrum information is set to do that. It's to say, yeah, they're moving the shade a little different, and we need to take that into consideration. Because it's not all bad. Elon Musk is on the spectrum. So still be the richest man in the world and have spectrum. So it's not necessarily a negative thing, and it allows the media to sound more psychological. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to give an explanation of shades that is confounding people rather than just black and white.
By the way, if I was Elon Musk, I'd buy the parent company of Reese's peanut butter cups, and I would have it all to myself, and I would not distribute it to anyone but myself. Okay, so there was a very dramatic.
Wait a minute. Oh, you saying you want to be Willy Wonka in real life?
Yes,
Is that
100%.
Is that what you're sharing with us today? Oh, there we go then. Hey.
Okay, so listen, there was a dramatic moment in court today. I love Raj. There's a dramatic moment. Will J gets up. There have been these ongoing discussions and arguments that, truth be told, I can't even tell you where they all stand, because there have been so many iterations of them, but it all revolves around this battered spouse defense.
Let me interrupt here for a second. Listen to what you're saying. You've got people creating an atmosphere by just what you said. It's chaos and confusion. Okay. And there's that I believe is purposeful.
Interesting. So this moment in court, Ryan, I'm going to go to you on this one. Will J, who you used to work with, the state prosecutor, he went up and read the transcript from the now infamous suitcase video. I think he read all of what she actually said, which, when George Torres was basically crying out for help, she just completely dismissed it, was laughing at him, making fun of him. Now, when this was going on, Sarah Boone was literally just, that's when she lifted, she got real alert then and was kind of, throwing daggers into Will J's back from her position at the defense table. The state says, look, this is our case. It shows her depraved mind. her utter disregard, and then went on to say we have new statements that she shook the suitcase, she hit it with a bat, she tossed it down the stairs. The defense then gets up, James Owens, and says, I wish I had this in writing weeks ago. I do not agree with his assessment. I'm going to hold it right there because there's more. What is happening in this exchange? And then the defense goes on to basically say that their hand was forced to reveal what they're going to do. But what's happening here?
Well, I mean, it was almost like the attorneys were marking their territory. This came up in the context of James Owen alleging that the state didn't put them on sufficient notice of what their theory is, which, first of all, you don't have to. Second of all, even if Will J didn't give this the reading that he did, this pretty straightforward theory based upon the facts that they were messing around. He's in the suitcase. He is in a position where he needs help, and she sits there and mocks him and watches him die, basically. So what you saw today was all of this argument on overt acts, and the defense just sort of, I mean, to Roger's point about creating chaos, we call this throw the crap against the wall and see what sticks defense. So,
yeah. I'm sorry.
No,
but
Rod, you're on a delay. Rod, you're on a delay. So, just we got to wait a sec. But go ahead now. Go, Raj, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but one of the things that I wonder about in all this is when we see what she does, I would wonder if it is a mirror of past sexual encounters between him and her, only with her being so somewhat in the suitcase and him doing that she's just repeating being that usually she's the victim in that scenario, and that in this situation she became the predator.
Well, and I think, Joel, there's something else that I was seeing today and really have seen the last couple of days, and that is the jury's not in the courtroom. The jurors are who matters. So what this morning looked like to me is it turned into a bunch of posturing. And 95% of the cases you try as a prosecutor, nobody else is in the courtroom except an intern or, somebody who took the bus pass to the courthouse for the day. But people like you are there, and there's media cameras there, and there's focus there. And almost subconsciously, a lot of lawyers will start falling into the trap of people are there. And because of that, they want to put on a show. Will's reading of those experts today were not necessary to the argument, but he was planting a seed with, people like you and people like us that are now going to go out and talk about the case. The defense is sort of doing the same thing. The other thing that you see is you kind of precondition the judge a little bit here, because the judge is going to have to make admissibility rulings on what's relevant, what's not. This whole overt act thing is just going to become a zoo once we actually get into testimony. So what's going to be really telling to me is how these people are acting in front of the jury tomorrow. Because although trials are much more controlled and contained, how they interact with each other, Sarah writing things nonstop, her not shutting up to her other defense attorneys, the difference in presentation is what's going to be really interesting to me.
Whenever Joel says Will J, I think he's saying Lil J, like he's a rapper. Did you guys used to make fun of him in the homicide division, Ryan, or no?
I've called him many awful things, some to his face and some behind his back, but I was also the victim of such torment. And I agree. When I first started in the office and he was there, I thought it was a nickname. So,
So
I've seen his bar card. That is his full name.
Joe Patuto. So this gets a little more dramatic in court today. Once this is read aloud, again, this is the audio transcript of the suitcase video. James Owens, who obviously is Sarah's defense attorney, gets up and says that the state tried to reject the battered spouse defense twice. This is what he says. This forced us to reveal the overt act. And what the overt act is, we now know, is that the fingers, that George Torres was able to wiggle a few fingers out, which apparently she took a bat to his fingers. The judge says he kind of got annoyed there, and he comes in and he says no one was forced to reveal an overt act. And then he started going into the Sixth Amendment and saying that he does feel like he had to show the hand of the defense. What do you make of all this?
Well, their problem is, and it seemed to me it recurred during the hearing. They want to raise a defense. They have to demonstrate that there is some basis for being able to raise the defense, and they're being asked to do it in advance of the trial, which is efficient. They didn't want to do it. You can't just throw a defense out there. They kept saying repeatedly, at least as I heard it, we can't do anything now. We have to wait until the evidence comes in. That would say that you could never have a motion in limine. Everything is only going to be a trial, which is an insane position to take, I think. And so they had no other way to show what the overt act was. And the judge is saying you only need a scintilla of evidence, but you got to have a scintilla. And therefore, then they said, well, our position is that given her being subject to the spousal abuse syndrome, when she saw the fingers at the zipper of the suitcase, she thought she was in imminent risk of serious harm because he was going to be able to get out of that suitcase and kill her. So he was the aggressor by putting his fingers in that space in the suitcase, and she's responding. For self-defense, for the spousal abuse part of self-defense, you've got to respond. You can't be the initial aggressor. They had to show something to show that she was responding, and the only thing they had, and they said that she's going to have to get on this. They said two things. She's going to have to get on the stand to show it, and their expert witness on the syndrome won't be able to testify until after she testified. They didn't have to say all that. All they had to do was to provide enough to provide a basis for the defense. Their position that they're being forced to it. I mean, you could describe it that way, but the law requires that you be able to provide something. So I thought, and I'm very respectful, and I think the two other experts here know more than I, but I don't think what they're doing is simply intentional. I think some of it is bumbling around and not hearing what's being asked. And I wonder how that's going to affect Sarah Boone. Whether, in her view, since she knows everything and she's really the lead attorney there, whether they're not being able to get up there and be in command and being crisp and 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to lead her to want to do more and more to control this and to be less and less happy with the defense they're providing.
Yeah, a couple of points I just want to jump in there with. This is an interesting question, which we'll get into, but Tony Henderson, who was doing the voir dire for the defense today, was asking a lot of questions, and this is not going to come to any surprise to Ryan or Joe, but he was asking questions about self-defense. He was asking, do you own firearms? Do you think it's okay if someone breaks into your house, to kill them in self-defense? He was asking, do you believe that someone has to actually attack you to do it? Or can it just be that you feel like you're in imminent danger? I'm paraphrasing all this. But obviously they're trying to get a handle on what these jurors are thinking. This question is interesting. So I'll pose it to Ryan. Why is their overt act a reveal if it is so overt? I mean, it's an interesting question. That's the way the law describes it. But I mean, how important is it for the defense to have kind of kept that closer to the vest?
At this point, it doesn't cause any prejudice. I mean, let's just be realistic. This thing has been marching on. The state has had this case over 4 years. They are prepared. Whomever's given the opening has their bullet points done and ready to go. And the reality of it is the argument over the overt act and the ability to get the self-defense instruction, that's not coming for at least another week and a half until the defense case comes in. Yeah, I think that sometimes when you're so protective of your case as the lawyer that you're almost in the fog of war and you just get tunnel vision where that was not the right argument. It wasn't the right push. Nobody was forcing anybody to reveal anything. And if the state needed that statement today in order for the light bulb to go off, then Sarah is going to be out of jail in 2 weeks. So, I mean, this ship has already started sailing.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, Aunt Nancy here says, during sidebar, I noticed the two female attorneys seem to try to comfort Sarah Boone by chatting it up with her. They're all chatting with her. One is not an attorney. One of the females, as far as I know, is just a jury consultant. The other is the daughter of Tony Henderson, who just passed the bar. He talked about it today in court. So she's just there to really assist. But I think this may be her very first trial from the way he was talking about it, which is obviously probably for her very exciting. To Roger on this one, again from I'm So Tired. Does the panel think that she will fire her attorneys? Before we get to you, Raj, this is her 9th attorney. And today she was specifically asked after jury instructions, and Ryan would know this also, around the time of jury instructions, the judge directs a question to Sarah Boone. Do you feel like your legal team allowed you in on this jury selection process? Do you feel like they're doing a good job? To which she responded, yes. And she was emphatic about it. She said, she added something else, like, yeah, they're great, something along those lines. But Raj, what kind of person fires 8 attorneys and then is on a 9th attorney? And is there a risk that she's going to fire these people mid-trial, do you think?
There's certainly a risk. See, what she's looking for is attorneys that are in line with her, that are the best representation of her style of thinking or processing. Okay, she kind of like she's looking and say, each attorney, did they get me? If they don't get her, she fires them. Okay, so that just shows you it's hard for her to find somebody that gets her because she's not well. And so it's not that the attorneys have to be not well, they just have to understand not well. And so I get kind of the vision of who is a good student of Tai Chi. And a good student of Tai Chi is a person who mirrors the master. What does the master do? And if the student mirrors that master, they're a great student. And that's kind of what she's the master and her attorneys are the students. And she's looking for them to mirror her concept of normal/reality.
Abby Crossing, who is a friend of ours, a friend of the show. This one is for Ryan. Is video audio, are they allowed in opening statements? That video leading off opening is going to be a tough you-know-what hill to overcome. Are they going to show this? Are they allowed to show this in openings?
They are allowed to show it, but it's a very, very dangerous. And the reason why is the last thing that the jury is going to be told prior to the state's opening statement is that this is an opening statement and their statements are designed to give you a preview of the case, but what the lawyers say is not evidence. So the danger you run into is if you play the video or the audio and for some reason you can't get it admitted during your case in chief, it's an automatic mistrial at that point in time. So playing the video could help, but trial lawyers are storytellers. And to me, even if I could, I would not play the video up front. What I would do is I would talk about it, I'd describe it, I would build it up to be the biggest thing that these people are ever going to see. And from a strategic standpoint, I'd probably want to play that video at the end of the first day and let it be the last thing that the jurors see as they go home. or the first thing the next morning, so that they're really focused in on it.
Is there a limit to how many times the state could play this?
No. And the state has the burden of proof in this case. So although the state is not allowed to have repetitive evidence and call multiple witnesses to just say the same thing, the state has great autonomy to try their case how they want to.
Yeah. I'm going to make a bold prediction here. I think it was Babe Ruth who pointed to left field and then hit a home run if it was him. But again, I'm just going to reiterate, I'll say this, I'll put it this way. This trial is not going to end, I don't think, the way anyone thinks it's going to end. How about that? It's a bold statement. I don't know. We'll see. Ryan's shaking his head. But I don't know. There's just a weird feeling. I can't really articulate it beyond that. One other interesting question, Ryan, before we get on to the next topic, is someone had asked, would it have been wise of the district attorney to put a female prosecutor on this case? What do you think of that? What kind of calculus goes into that? And I'm going to say something right now that I probably shouldn't say, but Will J is an interesting personality. That's all. I said it earlier, but we always talk about the defense and how they present themselves. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of times we overlook how the state presents itself. In this case, I could see jurors, I don't know, feeling like maybe he's condescending or talking down to them. I could see them having an issue with him. I'll put it that way. But I just threw a lot out there. First question, female prosecutor, Ryan.
So normally the assignments of cases are random in that you come into your office and there's a new file on your desk and congratulations. So on something this high profile, this would have been specialty assigned, and Will is the supervisor of the homicide unit. So I would have completely expected him to have this case, and I know that Will had the case from the very beginning. On the female prosecutor side, it is an interesting push and pull, because from my experience, female prosecutors can be interpreted in many different ways as well. And there is oftentimes a dynamic of thinking, who is going to cross-examine Sarah? And the optics of somebody with a more direct, aggressive style like Will's could work well, could not work well. Sometimes you get the dynamic of a male cross-examining a male, a female cross-examining a female, and you get sort of those gender types as well. What you're going to see is, David Cacciatore, who's the other homicide prosecutor, who hasn't said too much yet, has a very different approach, and it is one that will balance some of Will's aggression. But will Cacciatore be more involved, like vocally, once we get going? Yeah, I expect that they will have split up the witnesses based upon themes. So the law enforcement witnesses, the forensics, the lay witnesses. So you'll see Cacciatore doing a good amount of work during the trial. As to openings and closings, I expect my good friend will be doing both of those. Not out of lack of ability, but sometimes when the case is your baby, you want to rock it to sleep.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. Rock it to sleep when it's your baby. We're going to get to some more psychological analysis of Sarah Boone in a moment with Roger Rhodes. But Joe Picciuto from Coffee First. I need coffee right now, even though I don't really drink it. Professor Joe, how come this trial is going to be so long? I feel like it's cut and dry. What will they do for weeks? Hopefully it's not weeks, because I got to drive back and forth from Orlando, which I am not a huge fan of. But Joe Picciuto, and by the way, look, everyone talks, to each other, and people say things, but someone said they would not be surprised if this trial ended at the end of next week. Get Ryan's take on that possibly. But Joe, what do you think here about the length of this trial?
They're going to have a number of witnesses. Sarah Boone's her testimony, and Ryan talked about this, is going to take on, he estimated what, a half day?
At least.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised to see that it went longer than that. There are 2 forensic psychologists who are going to be testifying, and often their testimony can take a while. I suspect that the objections and the sidebars are going to be more than you might see in another trial, just from what happened at the motions yesterday. That will take up time, and sidebars take up time, and the jury may have to be moved in and out while they're making arguments and doing things, and that simply in the logistics is going to take time. So I don't know that estimate is so far off. And you don't know what witnesses the defense is going to call. We still don't know whether the domestic abuse defense is going to be permitted. If so, there'll be reputation evidence that's coming in. There may be people coming in within describing specific instances that will add to the number of witnesses that likely will testify. So cut and dry doesn't mean that you can do it quickly.
Yeah. But by the way, Ryan, that just, made me think of something. So Sarah Boone's on the witness stand, for half a day or more. I'm assuming she's going to screw up. And by that, I mean, say something that will open the door for the state. How does that work? Because again, like, she's not being led by her attorney. What if she just goes off on some weird tangent that then opens the door to a conversation about prior domestic violence? What happens then?
Then the state has full opportunity to jump through those hoops. Remember, all the rules of evidence in criminal cases are to protect and ensure a fair trial for the defendant. Now, it should be equal justice for all, including the state. But the reality of it is, all of the protections of the prohibition of irrelevant testimony, that's to protect a defendant and their rights. So you're right, a good defense attorney will maneuver their client through the minefield, but you're also right that she's going to step on one, and then it's just going to open up a door to cross-examination or rebuttal that's going to make the case go on even longer. I'll be shocked if you're not trick-or-treating up here, Joel, because this case has gone at Lass's pace so far. And if it's taken them a day of arguing motions in limine, which to the professor's point earlier, they have to re-raise those when it comes up in trial, or they waive it on appeal. So all of that succinct argument that bore everybody to sleep, you're going to hear it again when it comes up.
Man, I hope my kids weren't listening just now. Sometimes they watch the show, they'll be bummed, but I'll have to be there for Halloween.
Sorry to ruin that for them.
It's okay. Just destroy their lives. It's okay. I'll send them to. They'll be telemedicine
That's what
with
attorneys
Raj.
do. They ruin people's lives.
You know what? You can bring them up, and they can trick or treat in my neighborhood, and we'll talk about how bad Dad is, and make it all better.
Exactly.
There we go.
Lady Night here. This is a good.
It all depends on how many Reese cups you have.
Sarah fired 4 attorneys, 4 recused themselves. So, Raj, let me just ask you a couple of questions here. One of the things that is definitely going to catch the jury's attention is she made conflicting statements. So when the responding officer got there, no, we weren't drinking. Then she's at the police interview. I think it's the next day. Yeah, we were drunk out of our minds. We were getting along great. We had problems. Like, there's all these conflicting statements. From a psychological point of view, from your expertise, what's she doing here? She's covering up the crime, or is she trying to outsmart the detectives? What's happening?
Yes. Okay. Here's the analogy. If you want to catch a fish, it's important to keep the water clear so you can see the fish that you're catching. If you want to make getting the fish difficult, you stir up the bottom. It makes the water cloudy, and it's hard to catch the fish. She's a bottom stir up person. that's part of her issue, that she's come in, she's kind of like a fox. I'm just going to create, again, I mentioned when I first talked about chaos and confusion. Causing chaos and confusion, she's going to see clearly. She's going to operate clearly. But when things get crisp and to the point and clear, that is not going to be a good place. She does not operate well in that environment. And so that's where I see, that's another reason why I see the trial going on for a long time, because it takes a long time to stir things up and get through them. And she wants to stir things up. She wants her attorneys to stir things up, to bring out things that are nonsensical, because that makes it harder to see clear. And that's where that's going to be the dynamic of this trial is, can this group make it so cloudy it's hard to make a clear decision, or does this other group able to make it clear so that you know it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. That's going to be the dance, I believe.
But that's where, when you're planning your case, it's so important, because I agree with you, Roger. I think there's a real potential here that Sarah just wants to confuse and conflate and just, you know, look, you just had 14 people selected that weren't smart enough to get out of jury service today, and at the end of 2 weeks, they're going to be so damn confused. They're not going to remember what happened in days 1 and 2 and 3. And this is where, to your point about the length of the trial, if I'm trying this case as a prosecutor, I may want to try this thing as lean and mean as possible, get that video up, call the fewest number of witnesses that I need to, and try to get this thing wrapped up in a day and a half or 2 days. Because in the alternative, you've got to try this for a week and a half worth of evidence and put on every last little thing. And then you end up with jury fatigue at that point.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan, let me ask you a question. What's the shortest in your memory recollection of, for either a murder one or a second degree murder, what's the shortest presentation of your case?
The shortest case I ever had was second degree murder. It happened about 6 blocks from the courthouse, was a day and a half from the start of jury selection to him being found guilty. But I also had the murder on video. So that one was pretty straightforward. Most of these cases from the start of jury selection to verdict in Orange County take anywhere from 3 to 5 days.
And Ryan, someone asked, how would you, I think, actually, now I forget who it is. I think I'm having memory issues. I'm gonna have to. I hope it's
not enough
early
reasons.
onset.
Yes, too many reasons. That's right.
Yeah. What else can I worry about? Now I got to worry about early onset dementia. What's going on here? Ryan, someone asked, how would you? I don't think you would ever have to, because you'd probably be smart enough to not take her on. But how would you? How would you handle a client like Sarah Boone?
When you have a difficult client, you just have to put it out there. And, I've had difficult clients, and I tell them, you're paying me to do my job. And if you don't want to listen to what I tell you or what I suggest, that's fine. You're still paying me to do my job. But with somebody like her, you can't play into the games. So some of those attorneys that I think one of the other commenters had noticed had resigned, it's because they weren't playing the games with her. And they came in as just a blunt matter of fact, which with this type of person, you have to be direct with what's going on and what's going to happen. The other thing that happens, especially in these defendants like this that have been in the jail for a while, is they have 100 jailhouse lawyers in their ears, and they're seeing people come and seeing people go and people talking about their cases. And that's where they oftentimes will change as they adapt these novel legal theories. But if you play into it with this type of witness, it just becomes a train wreck. And then the worst part comes after they get convicted and their appeal is upheld. Then they go after you for ineffective assistance of counsel. And you don't look good if you are doing things that the crazy client wants you to do that are outside the norms.
From Kathy here, in prison, respect is everything. Her imaginary crown will be knocked off the minute she walks through those doors. Raj, address that.
Well, yeah, certainly she is ego driven. Okay. And boy, if there's anything that's going to kick your ego is going to prison. You know, that those people, you know, they're the issue around prison is there's no escape. Okay. You're there. That you have a captive lifestyle with evil people. So there'd be the issue. What you have to ask yourself, if she goes to prison, can she out crazy scary people? That'll be the big dance.
No.
Well, and that'll be a because I believe she is extremely not well.
Yeah. By the way, this comment made me laugh here from Beach Bum. Not so early onset. As of late, I will tell Carm, my co-host and mother, things like, "I want to see my kids grow up. I don't want to die young." To which she responds, "It's impossible. You ain't young anymore." She really rubs it in. She rubs it in. And
Well,
Carm also says that from 50 to 80 is the fastest period of life. It goes by the fastest. So everyone who's between 50 and 80, I hope you're depressed now. No, I don't. I'm wishing you all well. Enjoy the time. My dad famously said he was always worried about money. He was born during the Great Depression. And then in the last 10, 15 years of his life, he said, "I am worried about time. I'm worried about time." So there you go. Is it dangerous? This is an interesting question here, Joe. I've got a couple of law professor questions for the defense to let Sarah Boone just talk on and on due to perjury, which is a felony in Florida. I mean, Joe, how does this work? What if she lies on the stand? I mean, does she have any kind of immunity during this narrative that she's going to give, or is she in trouble if she lies?
Well, she'll be told to tell the truth, and she'll be in trouble if she lies. There's no question about it. She's under oath. She takes the stand voluntarily. There's nobody forcing her in law to take the stand. Now, whether anybody will go after her for that, if she's convicted of the second-degree murder, I mean, it seems to me that's extraordinarily doubtful, but it's theoretically possible.
So here's another kind of exchange at one point, and I can't. This was earlier in the day when they were arguing these motions. So based on complaints from the state, Ryan, James Owens got up there, and again he said, "We've worked to get all the discovery in a timely fashion." And by the way, I'd like you to explain, because I think last time, Joe said that there's, and I didn't fully understand this, there's no obligation to give the state the discovery. Is that right? That the defense gets the discovery? How does that work?
So in Florida, we have reciprocal discovery requirements, which is if the defense is going to participate, their obligation to turn over is just the same as the state, which is different in a lot of other states. But we have open discovery here.
All right. So whoever told me that was wrong.
Not I.
It was not you, Joe. Sorry for even dragging you into this mess, Joe. But so let me kind of.
I'll correct when necessary.
That's right.
Yeah, let me walk us through this little part here. So James Owens gets up there, and Joe, he says, based on complaints brought from the state, the defense, he says, "We have worked to get all the discovery in a timely fashion." He, for some reason, just threw out, this was seemingly out of thin air. He said, "We're not going to need a trial continuance," at which time I gasped, because I was like, oh man, tell me I didn't come up here. And now it just happened with Donna Adelson. And the judge just stopped at this point after he said the thing about the continuance. And this is his direct quote: "What does this have to do with anything?" Joe, that's never a good thing to hear from a judge.
No, and that's not the first time the defense heard it from him. He made that comment repeatedly. They are off on tangent. listening to it, whether it's intentional or it's bumbling. They don't seem to be able to start on a path and stay on it without digressing into things. They have things that they're annoyed about, and they don't seem to be able to go from step 1 to step 5 without digressing to insert that they're annoyed about something that has nothing to do with the argument they're making. It's annoying the judge, and it's not effective argument to keep playing that way instead of making your points. If you think you've got points to be made, the last thing you want to do is digress into things that have no relevance whatsoever and not get to the point you're making. So that isn't the first time. I don't think it will be the last time. The judge, I think, as we talked about, is already annoyed about it. And he's pretty tough. I mean, he told her when she went pro se, now you're on your own. And when these lawyers came in, he said, I put this on a schedule for trial. I'm not adjusting this schedule because you came in, at stage 9 or stage 10. So I don't think a continuance, I don't think you have to worry about a continuance. You may have to worry about a long trial, but unless something extraordinary happens, he's not giving anybody a continuance here.
Yeah. And this is why I keep harping on the fact that I don't think this is going to end well. Maybe something happens to James Owens, maybe Sarah, I don't know, but there's a weird, all I can describe it as a weird energy in that courtroom.
Because
Raj,
Sarah Boone is in that courtroom.
Yes, there it is.
Well, but here's something that's
the core. That's the core of this case. Is weird. Weird is at the start there, and everything that's weird, her crowd's going to go for, and the other crowd's going to try to get from A to B, and they're going to go A, L, Z, M. They're going to dance around.
Yeah.
But here's
Ryan. Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead. Yeah.
Here's where this dynamic's going to get interesting. To your point, Joel. Now that we have a jury, the jurors are the center of the court's universe. And you are going to hear time and time again, because we all go to great lengths to respect the jury. Sarah's going to do something. She's going to act out. She's going to not want to dress out. She's going to complain she's got 2 left Mary Janes or whatever she has. The judge is going to roll on with the trial. It's only happened to me a couple of times, but I had a murder defendant actually in that same courtroom that that's case is being tried, who would yell and want to have outbursts towards his defense attorney. We tried the case without the defendant there. So her hijinks, especially in front of a jury, are going to get kaput real quick.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at some notes here. There was something that I wanted to bring up, and there's a lot to talk about. While I'm doing that, Joe, can you just explain a Richardson hearing? They had one today. It had to do with all this discovery. I don't know if that's just a Florida thing, but Joe, are you able to explain that?
I could if I don't know. I don't know what Florida means by it's a case, and I'm not familiar with the case name. That when they go into these, whether it's numbers of what the judge did yesterday or a particular case in Florida, I probably could answer it if I knew what the Richardson case covered. So I think it's got to be.
Yeah, Ryan, jump in there then, because I know
right.
you know.
We're going to tag team in this. So Richardson versus State was a case, a Supreme Court of Florida case that dealt with discovery violations. So what the court looks at is a multiple prong approach. And the first is, what is the information? So you have to determine, what are we actually talking about? When did you have it? So if they literally came across it last night and immediately turned it over, that's different. Is it, the judge talked about today, is it trivial or substantial? If it's Sarah Boone's cable records, then nobody gives a damn. If it's another video of the incident, then it's highly relevant. And then the last determination is, what sort of prejudice does the other side have? So really the last 2 parts of Richardson are where it's so important, because if it's a substantial item that comes up at a point to where a party cannot change their theory, especially once it's in front of a judge, then it causes problems. Now, where this gets really, really difficult, and I imagine we're going to see it, is although the law is applied the same to the state and the defense, the remedy for a discovery violation oftentimes can be declaring a mistrial. However, there is a lot of case law out there, both in the state of Florida and with the U.S. Supreme Court, that talks about double jeopardy,
Right.
and that prosecutors really cannot ask for mistrials unless it's in an extreme circumstance. So what you end up getting is, as a prosecutor, these discovery violations, and you just got to learn how to deal with it. So I suspect if there's more discovery as of tomorrow morning, then the discussions are going to be even different.
Yeah. By the way, a quick shout out to Cindy Laporta, who just gave us a very generous super sticker. It is much appreciated. By the way, if you like the content, you like the best guests, there is no doubt, it is undisputed that we have the best guests in true crime. Call me immodest. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the best guest, Steve Cohen, booking them like Dano, as Steve Cohen would probably say. So, again, hit that like button, subscribe if you like it. We've also got a Patreon page. Again, thank you to Cindy Laporta for that. So let me just go through a couple of housekeeping items here in case anyone missed this today. The state got up there and basically said what is going on, that they just got 119 pages of new Sarah Boone medical records. The other day was 550 pages, mostly related to George Torres's medical records. But tell Will J was annoyed, really annoyed, because he's like, I had to, I got home, was doing work, then I had to do this. He made it a point in court to let the judge know it was taking up a lot of his personal time. James Owens immediately gets up there, Joe Patuto, and says, hey, we just got these last week. The state said, of the 119 pages, that they actually only got 81 of them. So then they had to clarify it, that the defense had reached out to the medical offices and just haven't gotten them yet. And Joe, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but when I'm hearing these exchanges, I don't want to say it's unprofessional. It sounds a lot like a guy who just got a 4-year-old case 45 days ago. And this is why I think we're headed to some sort of disastrous ending here. Am I wrong?
Well, yes and no. Part of what's happening is the state is asking, you've given us all this stuff, tell us which documents or which records you actually think are important. And they're getting from the defense, well, we've given you it all. And I wonder what they did the other day with regard to the medical records of the victim was the state said, these are the ones we think are important and the others are not. And it looked like the judge was going along with that because the defense wouldn't point to which ones they needed. So yeah, they're on it late, but on the other hand, I don't know. It just seems to me they are not organizing in a way to get at what's important. I was surprised the other day when Henderson, was that the lawyer? Is that his name?
Yeah,
said that
Tony
he
Henderson.
had not seen the depositions of their psychologist, had not read them. And he's the one up there making the argument at the hearing. Now, it seems to me, all right, you got a lot to do and you didn't read the depositions and maybe you're not going to handle that witness, but then why are you the one making the argument with regard to it? It just seems chaotic. I also think that, well, it's clear, I think they're not getting along because a lot of what's happening at those hearings, they could have handled, by just talking about it beforehand. There was that little discussion about the state saying, here are the exhibits that we need. I think there were pictures and things. We're not going to use any of the kids. Of the child of Sarah's son. And then Henderson gets up and said, well, there were pictures of her son in the records. And now they're sitting there wasting time looking at whether there were pictures. They both agree that they're not going to use those photos. So why can't you just agree to that, move on, take care of it outside of the courtroom, and that's happening over and over and over again.
But that's also the difference between fulfilling your ethical and rule requirements and demonstrating a level of professionalism that is respectful of the practice. So, so often, and in my civil cases, we will dump tens of thousands of pages of paper on people and say, good luck, find the needle in the haystack. Criminal court's different, though. And most criminal practitioners on the state and the defense, look, these are big stakes. I mean, rest of Sarah's life in prison is on the line. However, you really got to check the attitude sometimes as a trial attorney on both sides and realize that the outward appearance of the profession takes priority over a gotcha moment that then is just going to delay the trial.
This comment is interesting to me. Idaho Spud Girl, by the way, I wish Joel would not interrupt. My apologies. I will remain like a mime for the rest of the show. I will just use hand gestures. We do have a little audio delay with Raj, so my apologies. And yes, sometimes I interrupt. So please, it was just Yom Kippur.
Joel, I've got to share this. I got to share this. We got a new dog at our house, and do you know what that dog's name is?
Idaho Spud?
Joel.
Reese Cup.
Oh. I can't believe you didn't bring that up earlier. I love it. Idaho Spud, please forgive me. Yeah. So this comment here is interesting to me, from Goose. Y'all doubting Boone is kind of funny. Sometimes folks like her do outsmart the system. I want to make this point. I don't think she's dumb at all. I really don't. I think she's malicious and whacked out. She speaks well, and she's highly manipulative, Roger. Does she have a chance of convincing these jurors because of that?
Certainly she does. Without a doubt. If you don't think she thinks she can win, you have missed the boat there. Yeah, just because you're not well mentally doesn't mean you can't outsmart regular thinking people.
Well, and she's only got to, and she only has to outsmart one of them.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. Right. And if that one person has the fortitude to not fall and give in the jury room, then you got your hung jury. Or really, oftentimes, if all six can't be unanimous, that technically by law is not guilty.
Yeah. So listen, the document dumps continue here. It was not just Sarah Boone's medical records, but also the state informed the court last night. This is getting hard to believe. They received 382 pages of jail records. The state reviewed it. This is when Will got annoyed because he had to go through this last night. He said that he approximated that fewer than 5% of what those 382 pages contained actually relate to Sarah Boone's mental health. Other things are, like he said, typical of a middle-aged woman, which I took offense at because I'm a bunch of years older than her. But he said it was irrelevant, and the state said that we're having difficulty figuring out what, if anything, is relevant in here. But he read part of it, Raj, and this is for you. In her kind of mental health section of this medical reports, he read it out loud. Sarah Boone wants holistic medicine only. She does not want to be housed alone. She suffers from anxiety per jail records. The state went on to say, frankly, most of what's in here is, in his words, embarrassing and irrelevant. But Raj, there was a whole other list. I just couldn't get it all in time. She wants holistic medicine, and I thought it was really interesting. She made a request that she does not want to be housed alone. What is that all about? She can't stop talking to her attorneys. What's happening here?
Okay. Well, housing alone means she's alone with her thoughts. And I would think for her, that would be a scary moment. Another thing is holistic medication, psychological holistic medication, it has minimal effect, and it almost has no mind controlling effect, whereas regular chemistry for psychiatry really has an overpowering effect mentally on people. And so I could certainly understand that she wants to be in full control of whatever she's doing, and that's why she would want to go that direction. You know, it will have little effect. She will have her major facilities and be on her game. That's what this is. This case is about. Can she stay on a game and get someone to doubt what's going on, or are we going to have like Dragnet from the judge on just the facts, ma'am, nothing else? Just the facts is far from what she wants. She wants to muddy the water.
Yeah, Bestie here. Joel, will you please ask whether anyone believes if Sarah Boone is not guilty? I guess the chat let us know. I am assuming our panel, I'll let them speak for themselves. But first, I'm going to read a tweet here. I got a tweet today from a guy named Melvin Silver. Sounds like he could be my grandfather. I like this guy. This quote, Joe Patuto, I had to read it like 7 times because I'm not that smart, but you will get it on the first try, Joe. It goes as follows. The state only needs to disprove one element to defeat a self-defense claim. The state only needs to disprove one element to defeat a self-defense claim. Boone was the aggressor, and thus the state can easily disprove the element of quote-unquote innocence. Self-defense will not be successful, but claiming self-defense is confessing to intentional homicide. What do you make of that?
Well, you can't claim self-defense if you didn't intend to do the act. So that's true. And it is also true that you can't claim self-defense if you're the aggressor in this situation. Self-defense means you're responding to aggression at the level of the aggression. And when we're talking about deadly force, because you're in fear of your life. And it is also true that if you're in a state, and I don't know, Florida is one of them, where the state has to disprove the affirmative defense, then if you disprove one element of the affirmative defense, you've disproved the defense. Take it the other way. If the state has to prove first-degree murder and you have to prove an intent to kill and premeditation and a death caused by you, and you can't prove one of those elements, you can't prove the murder. So, whatever the elements are, whoever's the burden, they've got to prove every one of them. And if you can't prove every one of them, you can't prove the offense. And defense, you're disproving. If you're the state, you disprove one of them, you've got it, because the defense has to meet every single one of those elements. I hope I was clear as I'm listening to myself. That sounds confused.
You sound like a professor.
Oh, thanks a lot.
I just had
failed a lot of tests. But Ryan, let me ask you, flashback to law school. Ryan, what about the very last part of this? I think this is fascinating. Claiming self-defense is confessing to intentional homicide. Is that true?
Yes and no. So in Florida, there's homicide, but there's going to be an instruction that the jury's given at the end of the case called justifiable homicide, which is in Florida where self-defense comes into. So the tweet is about 80% right. And to Joe's point, Florida is interesting in that in a criminal case, the state always has the burden of proof. Self-defense is one of the few areas in criminal law where in Florida, the defendant then begins to take on a burden of proof. So the state puts their case forward. It's the defense's legal responsibility to prove that they have established the elements of self-defense. And then the burden goes back to the state to refute or rebut the defense's presentation. Now, that is, legal nerds like us can talk about that all day long. That is completely confusing for a jury, and frankly, it goes over their heads. But what's interesting about the initial aggressor piece is the Florida law has an exception to the aggressor, and that is if the initial aggressor stopped their aggression and clearly communicated that they were no longer wanting to be involved in the situation, then she could technically be the initial aggressor, but then still have self-defense. The problem with that is if the triggering act were the fingers out of the suitcase, she's engaging him the entire time. So it's going to be difficult for her.
Yeah, a couple of questions for Raj. Raj, first one, there are people in the chat who are openly, saying that they are actual victims of SA. Sarah Boone had domestic violence charges against her. George Torres has domestic violence against him. But in a way, people see this as making a mockery of real survivors, abuse survivors. What do you say about that, Raj?
Well, as we were thinking about this, I worked with the predators in domestic violence treatment for 15 years. And I was thinking of the 15 years I worked with both men and women, not one of them came to me and said, well, I was guilty. I did it. I was abusive. They all said I was innocent. There was extenuating circumstances. It's amazing how people that are caught up in domestic violence have great law minds in the background. It's really that's what makes this very scary. There's going to be just a large amount of denial involved in all that's going on. That I wasn't there, I didn't do it, whatever. And so that is the nature of abusers in domestic violence, that they minimize what they do and say, and they maximize what the victim does. And that's the dynamics that exist in domestic violence. And so yeah. Hopefully
so Raj, one of the other things that's kind of troubling, confusing, bewildering to people is this woman had a plea deal from the state, and she has already been in jail 4 years. She could have probably gotten out in about 8 years. Instead, she's choosing to go to trial, and she can spend the rest of her life in that prison now. She's in the jail, but in a prison. What is the psychological calculus there from her?
Ego, 100%. She thinks she can beat him. That's what it's about. It's about that she's doing this to show that she's smarter, that she's right. And certainly common sense would say, do the couple of years and get out. But to someone who is highly narcissistic and ego driven, any chance for them to beat other people, to say I'm a better lawyer than these people, I'm a better judge than these people, I'm better, period. And this is a avenue for me to show that. Plus, it's like people who want to be on TV, they find out where a TV camera is, and that's where they go. That's what she's doing too. Don't think she does not know the element of notoriety she receives from doing this. That's part of this system. She's again very egotistical, very narcissistic, and again, as many people have stated, she's very smart, and that makes her very scary.
Raj, I got to ask you one more thing, and then a couple of quick questions, and I promise we'll wrap. It's getting long here. But Raj, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I've lost track of time already, maybe 2 days ago, James Owens, Sarah Boone's defense attorney, he did this twice for two different reasons, but he said that she was getting, woken up at 2 something in the morning. So as a result, when she gets back really late, the commissary is closed. He, on her behalf, was requesting the following: 5 peppermints, 2 juice packs, 2 bags of chips, a bag of candy, and either a Pop-Tart or a bag of cookies. I was on Court TV last night with Dave Arenberg, and he astutely pointed out that this is could be my diet, but it's actually a elementary school kids preferred palate here. This motion was denied. She could not get these snacks. Even I wouldn't do this, but what grown-ass adult is asking for 5 peppermints, 2 juice packs, 2 bags of chips, a bag of candy, and either a Pop-Tart or a bag of cookies? You are the expert. Please explain this to me.
Okay. I'm going to make a comparison. If you're a rock star and you're selling tickets, do you ask for a lot of crap as a writer to perform whatever you're going to perform? And the answer is yes, because it's about power and control. Okay. So that's what she didn't even care, I thought I would say, about any of that. She just wanted to say, I've got the power, I got the control, and I can force them to give me this. Look how smart, look how powerful I am. That's all that was about. That whole dance was about
what happens when they don't give it to her? What happens when they don't give it to her, which is what happened? Then what?
She minimizes it and picks up. I bet her mind shifts on a dime. Okay. It's a big, big deal. And if they shut her down, she adjusts on a dime, picks some other stupid thing to go after and goes after. And because she is looking for a win. And the win is her being in power and control. And that's so I would say the real value of all that we mentioned about she wants this, the meaning was nothing. The request was everything. Granting the request would have fed her ego.
Amazing insight there, and that's super interesting. One thing that really interested me today was during the voir dire process, Tony Henderson asked the jurors, the prospective jurors at that point, if anyone is addicted to social media, and literally asked them, will someone go through withdrawal if you cannot post, for an entire day because you can't have your phones? I just thought that was such a kind of a sad commentary on where we are as a society, but I guess it's healthier because he said he used to have to ask that about cigarettes. Jimmy McNutty, there's a million scenarios, and I got to wrap it in a second. But to you, Ryan, what happens if Sarah, she doesn't have Tourette's as far as I know, but what if she blurts out in front of the jury some insults to the jury? Can that cause a mistrial and back to square one? What if she does say something to the jurors or about the jurors?
Then she's invited the error, and it doesn't constitute a mistrial if the state doesn't ask for it. And they would be idiots to ask for it.
There you go. Raj, what can I say about Dr. Raj? Yeah. Raj, you got to give it a wowee. And Raj is a practicing therapist who works with the Okie.
I thought about the other day. I walked by. There's a brewery over here that brews a beer called Yeehaw, and I thought about you.
Raj, your final thoughts. How does this all end up? Am I wrong? Is this going to end in a conviction, or is this going to get derailed because of her craziness?
My hope is it does not get derailed, that sense rules the day, that the judge holds everybody their feet to the fire and it's over soon. That would be my hope for all of this. I never want to champion chaos and confusion. Wow. There's enough of that already, and I would never want more of it.
Ryan Vesio used to be a homicide prosecutor right here in this county where I'm sitting right now in Orlando. Now he is a defense attorney, a very smart one at that. And people were commenting about your silky voice, Ryan. So do not let your wife find out about that. That could be bad for you or good. I don't know.
I need
it
all the
could
points
go-
I can get.
Yeah, it could go either way. Ryan, do me a favor, your closing thoughts, but how is the state going to open their opening statements? Give us a guess.
They're going to tell a story of what happened inside of that suitcase, because those are the facts on video that cannot be easily interpreted other for the horror that they are. And they're going to talk about how Sarah can't keep her stories straight and her opinions change on the day. I think in the end, if this trial is based upon the facts learned in the investigation, she's going to the Department of Corrections. But I've tried enough cases to know that trials never go the way that you think they will when you're dreaming of them the night before opening. So we'll see where this thing goes.
That's all you can do. Finally, of course, Joe Patuto, the professor, bringing us the law on a silver platter, explaining it all. Joe Patuto, am I absolutely crazy for this visceral reaction that somehow this thing is going to end up in a weird way? What are your final thoughts?
I don't know. Well, I'm not the psychologist on this panel. I don't know if you're crazy, and I don't know what it is you think will be the weird result. So it's a pretty hard question for me to answer, and I'm not going to try. I will answer my own question.
I feel like she could dive onto Kranick's bench at one point, like something crazy. So we'll see. Who knows? Maybe it'll be totally smooth.
I think I agree with both the other panelists. She's going to be a nut. That's my legal opinion of her. She's a nut. And
Yes.
she's going to try to do everything. I don't think she's going to try to do anything because purposefully to be a nut, but I don't think she's going to recognize that what she does is nutty. So if that makes any sense. I have a lot. I know that juries, you can get an odd result from a jury, and in a criminal case, you just know one. You just need one. But I also have a lot of faith in the common sense of the jurors, and I cannot imagine that a group of 6 people with common sense can listen to her and see this evidence and not convict.
There you go. The professor has the final word. Thank you for this super chat. And tomorrow, opening statements, we're going to be streaming it live. I'll be in the courtroom starting at 9 a.m. The CEO, I'll do a lunch live, and then the COE is doing a show at 5:30. We will see you then. Until then, have a wonderful night. Love you, America. Love you, Orlando. Love you, South Carolina. Love you, New Jersey.